Good morning. It is March 6th, 2024, and I listened to this album in full splendor yesterday. This is the Mandrake project from Bruce Dickinson. I previously did a packaging review. I kind of gave it a hard time because it was $28 on Amazon. It includes a comic book and a bunch of things I didn't need. And to be fair, it's too much money for one CD. If you're not into a comic book, then you're paying $28 for a CD. But now I'm going to follow up and tell you what I thought of the actual music. So I took some notes here. First thing I want to say is there's some dillweed on YouTube that thinks he's some metal aficionado who gave this a bad review and complained in the entire review about Bruce Dickinson's voice. Bruce is still awesome. And I've come to the realization that no matter what music you put underneath it, if Bruce Dickinson's singing, it's going to work. And the reason I say that is because this record is so much different than both Iron Maiden and even his prior solo records. So it's been like 20 years since he's done a solo record, and I've got all of them. And there's some great ones in there. Chemical Wedding and some of the other ones. I've got them all. I can't think of the titles off the back of my head, but there's some good records in there. Tattooed Millionaire. There's some great songs, and most of that stuff was pretty heavy. And this is a trippy album because it's got a lot of mix of writing on it, and it's got heavy sections like throughout the whole record, but it's mixed with a lot of mellow stuff too. So it's very dynamic, I would say, this record. There's a couple songs that you could almost get fooled into thinking that I'm going to put this down now, that they're like a ballad of some sort, but then it blows your head off. So yeah, it's not something that you can just listen to in a snap and go, I know what it is. So I passed through it this morning briefly, kind of skimmed it and took some notes. And I probably should have done this review yesterday after I got done with the whole thing, but I don't know. We'll see. So the first track is probably my least favorite, and that was disappointing because yesterday when I started listening to it, I'm going, I don't dislike the song, but I dislike the feel of it because it's slow, and I describe it as like, I'm a drummer and I like fast, upbeat stuff mostly. When it gets a little bit too draggy, it's kind of like Neil Peart one time was talking about, I can't remember the song was, but it was on one of the later albums. And he said, this is the song that I just hate because he wants to go. And it's like, you have to pull back on the bridles to keep from going too fast. It's one of those kind of too slow for its own good song. It feels like you're trudging through sludge. So I'd call it like sludge rock. That said, if I had to compare it to somebody, it was mostly like Black Sabbath. And then it had a lot of Ozzy influenced Zakk Wylde kind of guitar. Not as much with the pinch harmonics, but I even think some of that was later in the solo, if I remember right from yesterday. I didn't listen to the whole song through this morning, but it had a definite Black Sabbath and Ozzy vibe, which is kind of weird because considering Sharon Osbourne and all them pretty much ran Iron Maiden through heck over here in Devore, gave them a black eye, kind of harassed Iron Maiden on stage. You wouldn't think he'd want to kind of do an homage to Ozzy and Black Sabbath, but it's definitely there in a couple places in the record. The second song definitely sounds like the Scorpions. It's one of the best tracks. I'm a huge Scorpion fan. And it's more classic rock. It's got an organ in it, so it's definitely got a classic rock feel more than metal. And to be fair, I like classic rock better than metal. And perhaps that's why I would say this is one of his better records. Some of the earlier solo stuff, there was some heavy ones in there, and it's kind of like, man, after you get hit in the head 10, 12 times in a row, it's kind of too much almost. That's why I kind of like this has a lot of variety in it. So the third one, I would say, had a segment that was kind of goofy. it was that kick drum thing going on, and he's singing on top of it. And it sounded funny, kind of like a square dance. And I was thinking, take your partner, do-si, do, da, 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 da. But then it had a solid chorus to it. So that kind of bailed that song out because I thought it sounded goofy for the first part of it. The fourth one had a lot of Ghost Riders in the Sky, and it had a gallop. I'm not sure if this is the one that Steve Smith played on, but it's not Steve Smith, Steve Harris. Steve Harris wrote one of these songs, who was the bass player of Iron Maiden. And I think Adrian Smith is the name I'm getting mixed up. He's the other Iron Maiden guitar player, and he wrote one song on this. And if I had to guess, it's probably track 6, but I could be wrong. Anyway, track 4, Ghost Riders in the Sky, had the gallop, and it had a Black Sabbath segment in that song too. And then 5 was a piano-driven power ballad, not like a lovey-dovey one, but definitely kind of that slower piano vibe, and then kind of booming up in the chorus. And then 6 was that one that's the most Iron Maiden-like track, and it even had a solo that sounded like Iron Maiden. That's why I think it might be the guitarist of Iron Maiden's song, but I'm not sure. I've not looked back at the credits. The Straight Ahead Rocker was number 7. And for the tempo part of it, that might be maybe the best one or the second best one, just because I like the upbeat tempo. The beginning of it reminded me of Stone Temple Pilots, but heavier. So it's almost like if you took Stone Temple Pilots and then you turned their amp into a more metal sound, I guess. That's what I got out of that one. Number 8 was a acoustic guitar and piano, again, like a power ballad. And it was the most, this one truly was almost a power ballad, and it was the most mellow track on the whole album. And then the last 2 are the long songs, which makes sense. He kind of ended the record with the 2 epics. And 9 started with piano, and then it was mellow, and then a power slow jam kind of thing became an epic. And then the last one, of course, is the 10-minute slow epic. And it's got a little kind of acid rock, kind of weird part to it, but then it becomes big and boomy again. So I would say part of the people that are more into straight metal, I suppose, are probably complaining that it's not heavy enough. That'd be my guess. But if you don't want to get walloped in the head 10 songs in a row, this got a real good mix of stuff in it. And like I told before, anything Bruce Dickinson sings on is great. The guy that's on YouTube complaining, he actually gives on his thumbnail Bruce Dickinson a middle finger. And I'm sitting there going, who flips off Bruce Dickinson? The guy is a legend. He's awesome. There's nobody that should ever dispute really anything he's put out. He's been solid ever since the beginning. And even though I gave him a hard time on the packaging, because it's nothing I need packaging wise, and it costs too much, this record kicks butt. It's a good record. And you have to decide if you want to spend $28 or try to find it for less if it's available somewhere else without, shut up, bird, without all this cartoon in it and stuff. But it had a solid variety, went back and forth, acoustic guitar, piano, some gallop, some straight, some up tempo, couple, one the Scorpion sounding one. But if you like Black Sabbath, you're going to dig this record. If you like Ozzy, you're going to dig this record. If you like Maiden, there's a couple things in there for you. I just like the variety of it. It was cool. It was good listening from beginning to end. I never got bored. And it's Bruce. I mean, he's got one section in there and I was skimming it this morning, and I'm listening to the chorus, and he's just up there wailing, and he's got a harmony in there too. And I'm sitting there thinking about this dork who has a super whiny voice with his thumbnail that's got the middle finger at Bruce Dickinson. And I told him on his page, I said, you have the most whiny voice I've ever heard. Who are you to sit there and say anything about Bruce Dickinson? The guy's in there wailing harmonies. The Bruce Dickinson's a legend. The guy thinks he's some kind of fancy reviewer, whatever. Just shut up, man. You're stupid.